about the people who live in the Middle East. Arabs, Iranians, Armenians, Afghans, Turks, Kurds, and recently Israelis. U.S. foreign policy is often a part of the picture. My name is Don Bustany, and I wish you a happy holiday to Christians celebrating Easter and to Jews celebrating Passover, and a pleasant Sunday to the rest of you. I expect our first segment to be fairly contentious. You'll see why in a moment. In our second segment, we'll have open phones, and each call has its own character. And there's plenty to talk about because the Arab Spring is having some pretty bad weather. Today, we take a closer look at the horrific mess that is the Syrian revolution. You're going to hear from two Syrian nationals who are also American citizens and who have opposing views on Bashar Assad. Both live in Southern California. One is the editor-in-chief of an Arab-American newspaper. The other is a documentary filmmaker. We'll meet them both in a moment. First, we go live to Iran to our correspondent Ali Jafari, a reporter on the newspaper Hamshahri in Tehran. Ali? And I'm being waved off by Engineer G, which means we have no Ali Jafari today. Okay, we'll continue with the first segment. 13 years ago, longtime president of Syria, Hafiz al-Assad, died, and through the mysterious machinations of the Middle East, his son, Bashar, somehow became the new Syrian president. It was a process about as strange as the one that made George W. Bush president of the U.S. in that same year. Now Bush is gone, while Bashar Assad is still with us. But for how long? Our two guests may have some conflicting thoughts about that. Both were born and raised in Syria, and both have come to the U.S. and become American citizens. One has been on our program before. Riyad Saeid of Orange County is editor-in-chief of the Arab-American newspaper, The Arab World. Riyad, welcome again to Middle East in Focus.
And to you and to your listeners. Thanks.
Thank you for being with us today, getting up early on Easter Sunday. Yeah. Our other guest lives in San Diego. He's a documentary filmmaker, and at the moment he's in a town on the Turkish-Syrian border shooting a film about an assistance program for war widows and their children. Halim Gabori, welcome to Middle East in Focus. And again, Engineer G waves me off. We have not made a connection with Mr. Gabori on the Turkish and Syrian border. So, Ray, as you're called by many of your friends, the Americanized version of Riyad, let's start with just you and me, and I'll just try to be the devil's advocate here.
Very good.
Tell us where you stand in the Syrian civil war. Which side do you support?
Number one, Don, you said the right word, it's a civil war. Of course, I stand by my country. I stand by my national army, the Syrian army, by President Bashar al-Assad, who represents most of the Syrians and represents me personally. Standing with Bashar al-Assad or with the Syrian army does not mean that we stand by a person, but this person represents the integrity of the country, represents Syria as a country, as one nation, as Muslims, as Christians, as Sunni, Shia, Alawite, Druze, and everybody else. And we are standing with him to keep our country united, to keep Syria as it was for 7,000 years, a minaret for education, for civilization, for history, and for peaceful coexistence among all sects of people.
I believe that most observers, whether they support the two Assad regimes or not, at least give those administrations credit for having run a secular state where no particular religious sect has advantages over another. But when you said you stand for your country, are you implying that the Syrians who are rebelling do not stand for their country?
Yes, they do not stand for their country. It's a conspiracy against our country, supported by the West, supported by Saudi Arabia, by Qatar, by Turkey, and it's the main element of this rebellion against the country are the Muslim Brotherhood, are the Salafi, the Wahhabi, and the Islamist, fanatic groups that they are trying to divide the country and to destroy it. Outsiders. Just one thing, Don, to know that in Syria, the latest report says that there is 120,000 terrorists in Syria. They came from 32 countries, and 70% of them are non-Syrians. When they come to our country, they destroy our mosques, they destroy our churches, they kill Syrian people, and they...
wait, you're going too fast for me, Riyad. When you say they destroyed the mosques and the churches, do you mean literally they physically blew them up or something like that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just...
when did this happen? This during the last 2 years or before that?
Just the last 2 weeks. On the 21st of March, Al-Iman Mosque in Damascus, which is one of the biggest mosques, was, they exploded it. Some terrorist came inside and exploded himself inside to kill the senior sheikh or the greatest figure in Syria, Dr. Muhammad Saeid Ramadan al-Bouti. He was killed with 42 people and 85 injured. Before that, they destroyed Al-Umayyad Mosque in Aleppo, and yesterday they killed one clerk in front of his mosque in Aleppo. They attacked Sayyidnaya Church before. They shelled it. They stole even the oldest synagogue in Jobar, Damascus, which was one of the greatest heritages that we have in Syria for the Jews. They stole it. They are beheading the Christians. They are beheading the Muslims who are against them. And this is very clear. You can go to the news or to any news source and you will find it. Yes, they are doing it.
Who are these people and what's their intent? What's their goal?
Their intent is to divide Syria, is to make us sects and groups. They are Al-Nusra Front. They are Al-Qaeda. They are Al-Zarqawi, followers. They are the followers of Dr. Yusuf Al-Qardawi in Qatar. They are the Muslim Brotherhood, which anybody who is against them or anybody who doesn't agree, with their ideas is a kafir, is infidel, and there is a fatwa on TV to kill those people.
And are you suggesting that there are no, regular Syrian citizens who are opposed to the rule of Bashar al-Assad?
There is, Ron, and they are accepted. To oppose and to kill is something else.
Yeah, accepted by whom?
Yes, accepted. For example, I'm American, and I oppose to the policies of the United States in Syria and the Middle East and many things, but I will never carry a gun and fight the American government, or kill a police officer, or kill a doctor or a physician in a hospital because he's American and because we are, I don't agree with him. No, killing is something, and being, in opposition is something else. I look at to the Israeli opposition, for example. I never heard an Israeli opposition came to Syria to ask for guns and ammunition to fight his own country. Unfortunately, Syrian opposition are taking guns and support from Israel. And Israel, 2 days ago, just built a hospital in the Golan Heights just to treat the Syrian fighters who are fighting the regime. What does tell you?
Wait, just to be clear, who in Syria, the government or the opposition, is taking aid from Israel?
The opposition, my friend.
Okay.
the opposition.
So you're saying that the Israelis are supplying arms to the opposition?
Yes, sir. They're supplying arms, and at least they are taking, their injured people to Haifa and to other places to treat them. And as I told you, they built a new hospital in the Golan Heights just to treat those people. And it's in the news, not, invented by me. Everybody knows that.
Okay,
So
well, there is a difference between establishing a hospital to treat wounded and giving guns to one side. They're two different things entirely. Riyad, we're speaking with Riyad Saeid, editor-in-chief of the Arab American newspaper, The Arab World, based in Orange County. Riyad, let's go back 2 years to the beginning of the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
I remember 2 years ago, March 2011, that reports of Syrian people, civilians, protesting whatever it was they were protesting against the government. And those protests were described by all the reports as peaceful. The people did not have guns, and they were not throwing stones. They were simply out there the way any of us participate in peaceful protests, with placards perhaps and chanting, etc. So now what happened after those protests? How did Assad's army treat those protesters?
The protests, as you said, Don, they started peaceful, and it was very fair and just protest like any other country. But what happened that the enemies of Syria, those groups supported by, as I tell you again, by Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Qatar, they started using some of their people. They started firing at the other protesters because they want to make the problem big. They want to show the world that, the regime is killing them. And if you go back and remember, the first people in Daraa, for example, who attacked the courthouses and burned it, they were the protesters. The people that they attacked the police, the protesters. The people that they attacked, the fire department guys, they were the protesters. And I don't mean the protesters. Some people, they were with the protesters. The people that they slaughtered and beheaded, the police officers, they are from the protesters. So I don't blame, the protesters themselves, but I blame some people used them or entered, penetrated them to make these problems. And any government, the U.S. government or the British government or the Canadian government, when it sees that its police officers are being slaughtered and the building is being burned, they had to respond.
Well, then, I would say, if it happened as you described, I would say that the world news media got it wrong initially, because their reports do not comport with what you just told us. The reports were that the peaceful protests were met with physical opposition and suppression by the Syrian army, and this is early, before the various political factions from outside of Syria had any chance to go into Syria and start making their own troubles. So there's a non-communication or miscommunication.
No,
no?
You know, and I know. You know the media in the United States and Europe and everywhere. And if you go back to Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya, you know that it's very unfair media. This is number one. Number two, look, for example, now, the Syrian TV and the Syrian satellite, they are prevented from airing or from using the satellites. They just want to suppress and to shut down all the voices coming from Syria. Remember that there is over 250 TV station and, news media outlets. They are against Syria. And tell me, please, when the American media was fair, when the CNN was fair, when the Fox News was fair, we are always taking one side, and always the governments, are directing us where to go.
Yeah, well, the mainstream media in the United States sings the official administration songs. It is not fair. But when we say media, we're talking about many, many news organizations. And the mainstream ones, they think to survive, they have to report what the people expect to hear. And I know the Arab American community has been dealing with them for decades, literally correcting many of their reports. And most of the professional journalists are jealous of their reputations as journalists. And if you point out their errors in reporting in a diplomatic way, they get it immediately and they make changes. I know this from my personal experience with the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, ABC, CBS, NBC, and NPR. You have to stay on them and show them where they erred. They used to use the word Allah for God when they were quoting, for example, an Arab leader speaking in English, and they would use the word Allah for God, and it made the American people think, oh, Allah, somebody, some strange deity. It's not us. Allah is simply the Arabic word for God, the same God we all talk about. And the media are complex. There's not one boogeyman in the media. There are many, but there are also many decent journalists in the media. Let's go back again 2 years to the beginning of the protest. What were the people protesting peacefully? What was their protest? Can you tell us that?
Yeah. They were, the demands were, they want more democracy, more freedom, they want more political parties. And let me tell you, one thing was behind those protests is the opening of the Syrian markets to the Turkish products. This is what nobody wants to talk about. Syria and Turkey have a very good relationship, for a while. And the Syrian government opened, the borders for all Turkish products. Mm-hmm. This is what affected the Syrian people, and many factories, I say about, like, for example, in Harasta and Douma and, in the suburbs of Damascus, were closed because the Turkish products were cheaper, and people felt very bad. I think that these, demands were very fair, and it could be met, easily. But some people, the outsiders, did not want any peaceful solution. They wanted to escalate it. They thought that they would do what they are doing in Libya, or what they did in Egypt, or what happened in Tunisia, and things got out of hand. But at the beginning, they were peaceful, and it's a fair, I'm with those people who came out. But I'm not with killing the police. I'm not with destroying the country or, tumbling everything. Why
could not the Assad forces, the army and the police, simply direct their suppression against the troublemakers from outside of Syria? Certainly they could identify them. Why couldn't they, instead of tossing bullets at lawful, peaceful Syrian citizens, not have singled out the troublemakers from outside?
Well, it's a good point, Don. If I was in charge, I will really wage a war against Saudi Arabia and Qatar and maybe Turkey, if I had the power to do this.
Well, they didn't get into it right away. They didn't get into it right away.
They didn't. Don, when we talk about this, and you see the immoral support of the United States, Britain, France, and those countries to the extremist groups, it makes you sick. When they talk about democracy and about human rights, and you see them that they are killing students, they shelled the University of Aleppo like last month during tests, official exams, and they killed 85 students. They shelled the University of Damascus last week, and they killed 15 students. and they killed a Roda Iman in Damascus. It's in an area called Al-Bakhtiyar, and they killed many students. And one of the older people in the Syrian opposition, Haytham al-Malih, comes on TV to say that, yes, those students shouldn't go to the university, and they should expect more. We are against the government, and we are boycotting the government. When you hear something from the opposition that they are killing students, shelling mosques, stealing synagogues, doing everything, what you can say about those people?
Not good things.
And the worst thing when you hear that Mrs. Clinton before said that those people should not drop arms and we should support them with non-lethal aid. What do you mean? You give them dollars and they go buy guns with it? It's very sad and very very disturbing.
Yeah, Ray, let's come back to the main track that I'd like to follow here. I remember, and I'm sure you remember, you follow it more closely than I do for, obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You were born and raised there, and you know Syria in a way that I don't know it, even though I did visit Damascus some years ago. When the people protested peacefully initially, the reports were that President Assad said, yes, I will grant your requests and I will make these democratic changes you're requesting.
Yeah.
And he did not do anything of what he promised. And that escalated the protests. Now, if, hypothetically, let's say Assad wins the war and all the rebels lay down their arms and Assad's government, takes control again and there's no more violence. What kind of government will Bashar Assad establish?
First of all, Don, Bashar al-Assad, President Bashar al-Assad, at the beginning of the problems, he met with almost 1,700 delegations from the people asking them what should be done.
Yes.
And after that, if you remember, Don, a general amnesty was issued, and even salaries were raised, and mostly all the demands, and the change of the constitution, taking the Ba'ath Party as the leader of the government, establishing a religious satellite, Nur al-Sham. A lot of issues was done.
Recognizing opposition political parties.
The needs of the people, but they don't want reform. They don't want to work with Assad. Okay, if they want to just the main thing to drop the arms and to start dialogue. They don't want. They ask them for national election. They don't want the election because they will never win. Who is going to win? Are they 1% of the Syrian people? They can't. This is why they started. They don't want a peaceful solution. They want to destroy the country. They are thinking of having Syria like 4 separate states: Sunni state, Alawi state, Druzi state. This is what they want. They don't want dialogue. So those people, you should fight them.
When you say those people, please identify them for us.
The opposition, the so-called opposition.
The whole opposition is a mix.
Some of them, they are nice people, but the most of them, the guys that are carrying arms and fighting, the people that they are stealing the grain silos, the people that they are shelling the cities, the people that they are even stealing the oil, extraction machines and taking it to Turkey. Those people, they don't want Syria. Those people, they are stealing the bread and the food of the Syrian people every day. How you are going to stay with them?
Now, when you say those people, you're not talking about the Syrian people, are you?
I'm talking about some Syrian people with the terrorists that they are coming to us from Australia, from Afghanistan, from Turkey, from Saudi Arabia, even from
Riyad, do me a favor, please. Let's talk without using the word terrorists, because the Israelis use the word terrorists regularly to describe the Palestinians. They do it for the propaganda effect of it. It's not accurate. Israel is the biggest terrorist there. Classically, the definition of terrorism fits Israel's military occupation of the Palestinian lands. And they use the word terrorist. That's their intentional plan. So let's not use it here. We have people opposing one another, and both sides have certainly done things that can be described as terrorism. But let's not use the label because it throws the sense of the conversation off, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So just call them opposition, or you can call them bad people if you want to.
Okay.
So
a government, we want, to have dialogue, and many calls was, sent to them, and, even publicly through Russia or the other, countries, that just lay down your arms and come. There is nothing we can discuss. Everything. No. We want the removal of Assad, and we want this. The issue with those people, Don, they don't have a plan to the future. They don't have ideology for the future. They have nothing. They just want to get the power.
Yeah. Well, look, isn't it true that for the 30 years that Hafiz al-Assad ruled, and the, nearly 13 years now that Bashar al-Assad has been in power, that it has been literally a suppressive government on the citizens of Syria. There's no freedom of speech. You cannot criticize the government. You can't have an opposition political party and run in an election, run against Bashar al-Assad. I remember in the 90s when a delegation of journalists visited Los Angeles. I was president of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee chapter here then, and they visited our offices. There were about 5 people. And at one point I said, why doesn't somebody who doesn't agree with Hafiz al-Assad run against him in the election? And they looked at me stunned. They said, what do you mean? Who would run against him? Who can do the job he's doing? Nobody would run against the president. They were astonished at the thought of democratic elections. Now, is there such a thing as a democratic election as a possibility under Bashar al-Assad?
Yes, Don, yes. And this was discussed, and, even we want, myself and many people, we want, international monitoring of the elections. We want President Carter to be there. We want the United Nations to be there. We want a free election, a real election. We want, to change this system that the party nominates one person and you vote yes or no.
How do you get this? How do you get this with Bashar al-Assad?
Bashar agreed on that. Bashar al-Assad agreed on that.
He agreed to an open democracy with opposition parties and fair elections?
Yes, sir. Well, yes, sir. And they don't want it.
Well, why didn't...
The opposition doesn't want it.
Why didn't he introduce that when the protests first began and avoid this civil war?
The civil war, look, it's a plan to be like this. Even if Bashar al-Assad did a lot of things. He met all their demands. He do whatever with one condition. Drop your guns, come to the dialogue table, and we do everything. No. He should leave. Even, the United States were asking that he must leave. You don't tell me what do I do. You don't decide the future of my country. The Syrian people who have the right to tell Bashar, go or stay. So let us have a democratic, open, honest, clean elections, and anybody could, go for president, and anybody who wins will accept him as a president. We are not holding to one person. Anybody, the Syrian people elect him as a president, he is our president. He represents Syria. But nobody who is coming from Saudi Arabia or Qatar or from Turkey will represent me.
Okay.
I'm Syrian. I need a clean election, and I will accept any Syrian. I want no Wahhabi, no Takfiri, no Muslim Brotherhood, nobody to divide us between Muslim and Christians.
Okay.
We live all our lives as one nation.
Yeah. Riyad, the reaction of a non-Syrian like me is Bashar al-Assad had, since the year 2000, nearly 13 years, to make these corrections that he's now promising after there's a civil war going on. And you have to wonder about the intention of someone who had all that time to make these changes and improvements in the socio-political structure, who didn't take the opportunity when he was in total charge. And that's why people like Obama are saying he has no right to rule. Listen, I think we shed a little more light on the really frightful situation in Syria. I hope the violence ends immediately. It's not likely, but it's a hope that many of us have. And I hope you and your family are safe. And even though there's not a lot of agreement with you, there are two factions among Syrian Americans, essentially, supporting and opposing Bashar al-Assad. Riyad Saeid has been my guest this morning as a supporter of Bashar al-Assad, and before this ugly civil war is over, he may be again. I'll have better opposition for you next time, Riyad.
Okay, thanks, Don. I want just to say one...
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I will just tell all our listeners, all the people, that Syria will prevail. We will be victorious. The Syrian National Army will be our army, and Syria will be our homeland. We will never accept any fanatics, any terrorists, any Al-Qaeda.